KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black.
Follow the leader.
Following the leader.
Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
We say, we them people, we the people, we are those people. We want to be free, we gonna be free. Let's get free, yo. Dream on, dreamer, the way Alvin Ailey and Maya Angelou and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor dreamed of Southern-baked pilgrims dancing and slow marching their sorrows down the yellow brick roads of second-line members coming from the heels of their dirt-kissed feet. I want to be ready to put on my long white robe. We are survivors, we are survivors, we are survivors of people who were free and became slaves, of people who were slaves and became free. We know why the cage bird sings. We know what a redemption song brings. We them people, we the people, we are those people who shall never forget. Our ancestors all up in us as we sleep. Our grandmother all up in us as we weep.
KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the voice of Kevin Powell, one of the most celebrated political, cultural, literary, and hip-hop voices in America. Just released his very first spoken word poetry album, and you're listening to it right now. Original music produced by him and Tanisha Hill, in the spirit of hip-hop turning 50 this year. Poet, author, activist Kevin Powell, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to finally do your show. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm happy that you're on my show. It's much appreciated. It's been a minute. And congratulations on your first album after all of these many books and other projects. You finally got an album out.
It took a long time. It is hard. It was hard. We spent 8 months working on those 9 tracks through all this craziness that you were talking about, these times we're in. I was listening to what you were saying, and thank you for your voice and all that you do for our communities everywhere. It's just, something I've been wanting to do for a long time in the spirit of your father, Mary Baraka, of Nikki Giovanni, and other folks. And, we're got Grammy consideration going on, but whether that happens or not, I'm just happy to contribute something to the art form. And I got the bug now. I want to do it again. I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I feel like once my dad started recording with jazz groups, it was like it was a thing. It became an addiction. He even toured with a band. Do you see yourself doing that maybe one day?
I actually, I will be doing something in LA and in New York in the spring. I'm going to be with a band in both cities. And yes, we did something. I have to, it just makes sense. And I just, I love writing books. I don't want to stop writing books, but books is hard. Books are hard. I'm literally sitting here writing a piece about Killers of the Flower Moon, this new Scorsese film. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's definitely, it's a lot to digest. I will say that, and I want to make music because I love the collaborative thing. Writing is lonely. Dominic, it's a lonely process sitting there by yourself. And I love working with Tanisha. She's an amazing producer. A lot of sisters, a lot of women don't get credit as producers, and she is. I want to keep saying her name over and over again because I couldn't have done it without her.
Wow, so it's already hit, and so we can catch you on tour. We can hear you with the band live, and it sounds like you're already working on the next album. I wasn't aware of the Grammy nomination. Congratulations. That's a big deal. First
Well,
time out.
we're being considered. We're being considered for it. We'll see if it happens. We'll see. We are definitely in the running for it, so we will see if it happens. But you know, I've never really done the work for awards. You know, but I think about how folks rallied around Toni Morrison, you know, in her career, and Baldwin and people like that. And just, you know, I think sometimes it's just, you know, you just want to be acknowledged that you're here, that you exist. I mean, you know what I'm saying. I don't do it for anything but the people. It's always about our communities first and foremost. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for people like your dad and other folks. I'm real clear about that. So I'm just trying to carry on that tradition.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. We don't do it for the gram, we do it for Compton. I get that. But at the same time, it's like those awards and stuff, they also add up to currency. They add up to cash. They add up to opportunities. They open doors.
This is true. They do. Indeed, they do. Even, you know, it's funny you said that because even if we've been posting hard about the Grammy consideration, people like, just the word, people are excited. I'm like, I mean, when I post something about something going on in the community, there's no reaction. But you post something about the Grammys, everybody's reacting like, this is deep. This is interesting. What matters to some folks. So you're right. It is a currency to a lot of people. And I get that. I definitely get that.
Yeah, and I mean, and we as Black people always have this conversation. I think I've had it at least 1,000 times. Oh, we don't need their validation, blah blah blah. But the fact is, it is a brand. It has clout. So congrats to you on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Congrats to you on that. So you were raised in Jersey City, famously, you know, in a very low income kind of scenario. And what is it about New Jersey and writers, right? From Queen Latifah to my dad, like, what is it about that New Jersey, those New Jersey roots, Kevin Powell?
Whew. Wow. Queen Latifah, Mary Baraka,
Whitney Houston,
Whitney Houston, Lauryn Hill. I'll even shout out my brother Bruce Springsteen. It's a whole bunch of us. I mean, people, you know, people diss Jersey all the time, especially us from North Jersey, because we're right. New York is right there. We were like a stepchild to New York. But you know, there's something. It's working class folks. You know, there's a lot of working class folks: African American, Jewish, Italian, Irish, Puerto Rican. That's what I grew up around. You know, I grew up with waves of folks who were Filipino, who were from India. You know, and that had an impact on me. And I just, you know, I didn't know that Black writers existed when I was growing up. I had no idea. In fact, I didn't know that anyone existed other than Shakespeare, Edgar Allan Poe, and a few other people. I just read a lot. But it wasn't until I got to college that I realized, oh, there's a whole world out there that I didn't even know existed. And so as we see, and I'm sure you've talked about on your show, the banning of books, the whitewashing of history, you know, I grew up in that where we didn't have certain books. We didn't have certain things. And so unless you came from a family where, you know, like your mother and your father were artists, I mean, that's a blessing because you get art. My wife, she's from California. Her parents introduced her to various cultures growing up, and it made a difference in her life. And I had to kind of stumble into it. And so I'm really, really hard on this whole thing around banning books and the whitewashing of school curriculum, because it's doing a disservice not just to kids of color, but to everyone in this country to erase this. And this is why Scorsese's film is important to me. And I'm grappling with it. I'm writing about it right now. It'll be out later this week, what I'm writing about. But I realized I had never seen a film like this that humanized by a white filmmaker, indigenous people into this film. And that says a lot.
You know, there's some folks calling for a boycott of that. A lot of folks, actually. Killers of the Flower Moon is what you're talking about. Because it is a white person telling an indigenous story. And, you know, I haven't delved really deeply into that controversy, but how do you feel about that? I mean, you saw it. Do you think it's, well, I guess we have to wait for your review, but the question about the boycott,
No, I can
guess.
say it.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I guess my question would be who's asking for a boycott? And I think, you know, does Martin Scorsese have a blind spot around women depicted in his films? Absolutely. You know, has he had a blind spot around Black folks in his films historically? Absolutely. I'd say that in my piece. You know, it's going to be for Political later this week. You know, but they took very seriously the consultation of indigenous folks, and I know a lot of folks in the communities out there in the Plain States who are supporting the film. Now that's another question. Should a white person make films about people of color? We could argue that Spielberg has had problems, but, The Color Purple, the original version, is a film that a lot of black people love that was directed by him.
A lot didn't, though. I mean, especially when you talk about black men, right? The portrayal of black men.
A lot of black men didn't like it because of that, but they also didn't like it because some of us don't want to hear about sexism, unfortunately, which is real.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, which is a legitimate thing to talk about, because I think that, and I was one of those. I was in college when The Color Purple came out, and I just joined the bandwagon. And then years later, I realized, wait a minute, some of the stuff that's being said in The Color Purple is my single mother and my aunties and my grandmother. These are their stories as well. And so I think it's we can't tell people what they can and cannot do with art, what they can and cannot create. What we can say is what Scorsese did, which is we hope that you become culturally competent as possible and have a respectful conversation and partnership with the community that you're creating a film about.
Yeah.
And from what I gathered, that's what he did.
Well, the reason I'm laughing like that, Kevin, is because, of course, I've been doing talk radio for so many decades now that my mind goes right to the extreme, which is Birth of a Nation. We can't tell people.
Oh, yeah.
Can we tell people, or can't we tell people what they can and cannot do? I mean, I think we can. We can weigh in for sure. That's something my dad was constantly doing.
Oh yeah. Or you could say this is racist. I mean, you're talking about Birth of a Nation. There's many things where I'm like, no, this is racist. This is sexist. This is homophobic. No, this is unacceptable.
Right.
I'm saying what I sat there and watched, and my wife and I actually saw a private screening of it together, and we were like, with a group of other folks, and she is a critical thinker. I'm a critical thinker. We both were like, okay, we've heard these critiques. We actually read some of the stuff, but we didn't see quite what people are saying. We definitely see the problems, and I'll talk about it in the film, because I do think one of the issues perpetually is the centering of whiteness, as Toni Morrison talked about. And I think sometimes a lot of folks who are white can't figure out how to get out of the way of people of color and make sure that's the center of the story. Because even when you look at the posters, Leonardo DiCaprio's face is big, and then Lily Gladstone, the Native American sister, indigenous sister, is a small picture of her. And so even in the posters, there's that problem again. So certainly we should have those conversations. We should never back away from that kind of stuff. But I think what I think about as a longtime activist as well, where are the small victories along the way? And I remember a Chinese American sister said this to me years ago. We've got to look for some of the small victories. Like, the fact is, there's things in this film that I've never seen presented of indigenous people by a white filmmaker. I've certainly seen it by indigenous filmmakers, certainly, without question. And some of those films include films that Lily Gladstone had a hand in making and starring in. But I also want to encourage people to see those films too. Don't just criticize Scorsese. Are you actively supporting films that are made by indigenous folks, black folks, Latinx folks, Asian folks, women folks, queer folks, disabled folks, differently able folks? Are you supporting those films, or are you just going after films like this that are mainstream while not even supporting our independent film scene, which exists and needs support?
Talking with author, now probably Grammy nominated spoken word artist Kevin Powell, his new album Grocery Shopping with My Mother, and so much more. You're welcome to join the conversation. 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. I'm Dominique DiPrima for KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
A sense of peace, a place to kick back and put down roots, a lasting legacy. However you define home, at City National, we're committed to helping you get there with our City National Ladder Up Home Loan Program. Find the full benefits at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National Bank, here for our clients and communities. Ladder Up program is available only in select areas. Terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS ID 536994.
At Susan G. Komen, we believe that ending breast cancer needs all of us working together. Because if you've just been diagnosed and don't know where to turn, we've got you. If you can't afford the treatment you need, we've got you. And if you are driven to honor the loved one you've just lost, we have a place for you here. Because of you, we're supporting those who need help today while tirelessly searching for tomorrow's cures. Visit Komen.org and be a part of our Susan G. Komen community today.
Girl, I have a secret. When I get stressed out, I get sweaty. That's why I use Secret Clinical Antiperspirant. It's like my own secret weapon. For 72 hours, I get Secret's strongest protection against sweat caused by stress, heat, and activity, because you know how crazy life can get. Plus, it's made with advanced odor fighters that don't just cover up smelliness. They help prevent it from happening in the first place. Believe me, if I weren't wearing Secret, I'd be a hot, smelly mess. Thankfully, Secret works.
Discover, this is Danny.
Hi, it's Jen Coolidge. I just want to thank you for making me feel so special. I earned cash back on debit for my dinner party groceries.
That's great. But with Discover Cashback Debit, we give everyone cash back on everyday purchases. Anything else I can help you with?
Are you hungry? 'Cause everyone left after the asparagus sorbet.
Introducing Discover Cashback Debit, a checking account with cash back. It pays to Discover. Eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashback debit. Discover Bank, member FDIC.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
Walk to Save Lives. Join the American Heart Association's Los Angeles Heart and Stroke Walk, Sunday, October 22nd at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. Team up with friends and family and walk to end heart and stroke. Every step you take and every dollar raised will help save lives and make our community a healthier place for all. Learn more and sign up for free at heartwalkla.org. Sponsored by Optum, UCLA Health, Providence, Keck Medicine of USC, and Dignity Health.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Appreciate you waking up with us. You're invited into the convo, 800-920-1580. We're talking with Kevin Powell, one of the most acclaimed political, cultural, literary, and hip-hop voices in America today. He's got 12 books published and now a spoken word album, which is based on the book of the same name, Grocery Shopping with My Mother. Kevin Powell, where would you place yourself? You know, if you're placing yourself in the pantheon of great African-American or great American writers, where would you put yourself?
Oh my gosh! I mean, well, first it's actually 16. It's actually 16 books at this point.
Oh Lord, okay.
Yeah, but my mama, who's from South Carolina, raised me not to self-brag, and I take that very seriously.
It's hard to be in the entertainment business and take your mama's advice, though, you know?
No, it's just, I don't know. I just do the work. I really, really do the work. I mean, it's something that Bell Hooks taught me years ago is don't become addicted to the fame plantation. And that's something that I think about all the time because it's not really, and I mean that, I'm not just saying it because I'm on the air with you live. I really like to work and I take very seriously just being a part of this tradition. And I know as I said earlier, where I come from. I was blessed to study it very young once I got to college and became an activist and decided that writing was what I wanted to do. And, I saw Nikki and Sonia and Amiri and Langston and Zora and all those folks as I discovered Black writers and brown writers and women writers and all those folks. I was like, well, this is it. And I can't say. I just what I would say is that what makes me happy is when someone says it's something I wrote or something I did has helped them in some way. That's that because I don't separate the activism and the art. And I know you know what I'm saying. You can't. I don't think you can. We cannot. It all goes hand in hand. And I don't know. I just, and then now in my 50s, I'm just happy to be here because I'm seeing a lot of Black males specifically die, in their 40s and 50s. I got a piece coming in a couple of weeks about how many of us survived, our youth. I grew up in the crack era, looking over our shoulders, and here we are now, people dropping. So I just feel grateful, especially with all the craziness happening in this country, all the stuff happening in the world, the situation with Israeli, Palestinians, this right-wing fanaticism. You were just talking a moment ago about these Republicans and operative and not caring about human beings. All of it just, to me, it reminds me, just keep doing the work. And if people can get something out of it, then that's a blessing to me. And I really mean that.
Yeah. Well, I think just like you say, your mama taught you not to brag, and my dad taught me, and my mom taught me, that you can't separate art and politics, that all art is political. So you might as well be mindful of what you're saying rather than being a mindless tool or just, being sort of willy-nilly with it, and where you almost are certainly not going to end up serving the interests of your community and your family.
That's right. I mean, I was on Tavis's show a couple weeks ago. I wrote a piece about hip hop turning 50, and a lot of it, I'm a hip hop head. I grew up literally in this culture. I was a dancer as a kid. I was tagging graffiti, all of it, and obviously I love this culture, but there's the industry of hip hop, and then there's the culture of it. And we also have to be able to be critical about what's happening, and how do we not just reflect what's going on, but how do you change it with your art? And when we keep hearing the same stuff referring to our people as the N-word over and over again, the same disrespectful, sexist stuff about women and girls over and over again, and this stuff is literally spread around the world, like COVID was spread around the world. I've had, I said to Tavis, I'll say to you, there was a lot of folks, and Miles knows, he was there when we were doing the show. It's like, at the end of the day, what is the point of your art? Sure, we want to make money. Like you said, no one wants to be poor. I grew up in poverty. I grew up on welfare, food stamps, government cheese, single mother with a grade school education. Saw my father 3 times in my life until I was 8 years old. That was it. I grew up in horrific poverty. I don't want to be poor. I know what poverty is. Poverty is a form of violence. It's debilitating to us mentally, physically, and spiritually. But at the same time, I am not going to sell out my people just to make $1 with my art. That's unacceptable to me, knowing what art can do to uplift people. Like, I know when I first read Zora's Their Eyes Are Watching God, it made me understand my family in a different way. When I first heard The Last Poets or read Your Father or Richard Wright, it made me understand, who I was in a different kind of way than ever before. And that's what art should do. It should be liberating. It should be empowering, not further imprisoning us in oppression and insanity.
Yeah. Oh, man, so many things I can follow up on what you've just said. It's almost like, where do I go next? Where do I go next? You mentioned earlier in this conversation and referenced it right now, the whole issue of confronting sexism and in our community, right? And I feel like what's going on the internet right now between black men and black women, the whole manosphere and the politics of blame, is making it really challenging. And I feel like you're of a generation that is right in the middle of that conversation, in some ways leading that conversation, but it seems like you have a different angle here. So talk to me about how we, uplift and celebrate the black man without having to be polarized and subjugated as black women.
That's a great question. I think one of the things we have to do is really, as black people, go back. I mean, it's hard, watching the stuff on social media every single day. And I'm there like everybody else. I have to be. That's where the people are. But, if we go back and think about it, coming out of the Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement, Black Liberation Movement, the Black Arts Movement, there's a whole body of work by black women. Toni Morrison, Nikki Giovanni, Maya Angelou, Alice Walker, Audre Lorde. There's a whole bunch of sisters who were creating work that was unpacking, redefining, reconstructing. Here's what it is to be a black woman. Unfortunately, has not been a parallel body of work by black men. And what we've actually done is just become re-entrenched in patriarchy and sexism, or what I've always said, a bootleg definition of manhood that's based on the corrupt definitions of white men with power. You know what I'm saying? And so we don't think about that. And so when you talk about the response to The Color Purple, we can say people can say they have problems with Color Purple. You have a right to say, you critique any work of art. But when it's just like basically saying that black women shouldn't tell their stories, because what I began to realize as I got older was that the same people who were criticizing The Color Purple were also criticizing For Colored Girls when that was on Broadway with Ntozake Shange, or the same people were criticizing other stuff by Bell Hooks and people like that. And then, and for me, it wasn't until I began listening to, the voices of women and girls and starting to read, because if I'm honest about it, Zora Neale Hurston was actually the only black woman writer that I really even paid attention to when in my 4 years of college. Think about that for a second. Everything else I'm reading is Malcolm X, Richard Wright, Amiri Baraka, Haki Madhubuti, it's all men.
At least you picked a quality woman writer.
Yeah, but it limits you. It limits you. Sure. And I think what we as black men have to understand, is that, we can. I'm proud to be a black man. I wouldn't want to be anything else but a black man, but I can't allow the oppression that I've experienced as a black man to turn into me becoming oppressive towards women, towards folks who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, non-gender conforming. I cannot turn my fight against racism into sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, other systems of oppression, because otherwise you are a hypocrite. You become an incredible hypocrite saying, well, George Floyd, but there's a whole host of women like Breonna Taylor, which is why the poem that y'all just played, I say both Alvin Ailey and Maya Angelou at the beginning of the poem, and I say both George Floyd and Breonna Taylor at the end of the beginning of the poem, because that's intentional. Like, hey, y'all, all these people matter, not just one gender matters.
Yeah. And yet I think it's, as powerful that you are, not just a strong representative of, but also a strong advocate for the brothers. And it's like, I feel like you model the fact that we don't have to choose.
I agree. And absolutely. I mean, listen, my first film is coming out next year, and I can't wait we're going to premiere it in LA. It's a documentary film about black manhood, and we have brothers in there from teenagers to 90-something. We have 4 generations of black males in that film. We have 60 black males. None of them we purposely avoided celebrities, athletes, hip-hoppers, all that kind of stuff. All of us are hip-hop heads, many of us, because we grew up in the culture. But it's a conversation piece about what it is to be a man. And we deal with history, with manhood, fatherhood. We deal with things that hurt us. We deal with abandonment. We have brothers in there talking about being survivors of sexual violence as children. We talk about sexism. We talk about violence against women and girls. We talk about homophobia, transphobia. We talk about mental health a lot throughout the film. And we did a deep dive. We went and looked at all the most famous films around black men. They always usually focus on hip hop or sports. And I'm a big hip hop head, a big sports fan. They usually focus on celebrities, or they always only show black men reacting to racism. We're like, we want to do a documentary film that actually shows black men talking holistically about who we are and not just reacting in anger, but what kind of world do we want to see? And if this definition of manhood is not working for us, maybe we need to figure out something else. We even deal with suicide, which has exploded in black male population. And so, of course, I love who I am, and of course, I love being a black man. But what I'm saying is we've got to redefine manhood towards something that's actually about liberation, not further entrenching us in oppression and confusion.
Talking with Kevin Powell, you're invited in. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. President Biden is sending condolences to the family of a young Chicago, Illinois boy killed in what's being called a hate crime. The 6-year-old was stabbed over 24 times on Saturday. His mother was also injured in the attack that authorities say was carried out by the family's landlord. Evidence gathered suggests the family was targeted due to their Islamic faith and the Israel-Hamas war. Rite Aid is filing for bankruptcy. The pharmacy chain filed for Chapter 11 protection Sunday, facing declining sales, billions of dollars in debt, and more than 1,000 lawsuits linked to the opioid crisis. The company has hired a new CEO to navigate its restructuring and expects stores to stay open for the time being. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Wendy's new breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles lets you choose from your fave 4, including a sausage or egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, or medium hot coffee. Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in a combo. Single item at regular price.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Rams ran over the Arizona Cardinals. Running back Kyren Williams had 158 yards rushing. 154 of those came in the second half. Williams had one of the Rams' 2 touchdowns. The Rams are 3-3. The 2-2 Chargers are in action tonight at SoFi against the Dallas Cowboys. 5:15 kickoff on ESPN. No more undefeated teams in the NFL. The last two went down yesterday. Philadelphia lost to the New York Jets. The Eagles were shut out in the second half. The 49ers missed a field goal in the final seconds at Cleveland. They lose by 2. LeBron James and Austin Reeves did not play last night in the Lakers' preseason loss to Milwaukee at Crypto.com. First game together for Milwaukee stars Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard. They played the first half and combined for 31 points. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Join LA Civil Rights and the Reparations Advisory Commission's Black Experience Study live this fall. Learn about the city's plans for reparations and join the study in real time. For more information and to register, visit laisforeveryone.com today.
I had an important job, and it wasn't just a job, it was keeping my brothers and sisters safe. And coming back, it felt like kind of thrown away. If it hadn't been for Wounded Warrior Project, I honestly don't know if I would be here. It was like, I got my family back again. We all felt the connection, like that brother and sisterhood.
See how Wounded Warrior Project empowers women veterans like Donna by visiting woundedwarriorproject.org/empowerwomenvets.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The Green Foundation, key health influencer, empowering our Black communities through action. The Green Foundation advocates for affordable health care, accessibility, and knows the importance of culturally relatable health care. Regardless of income, we believe it is a right for optimum health. The Green Foundation has been at the forefront for 25 years, dedicated solely to promoting prevention through early detection, annual screenings, and nutrition. We know you because we are you. Our hand-holding approach supports you and your family to receive your right to be treated fairly and receiving quality healthcare services. We want you and your family to know COVID-19 was devastating to our families and to our wallet. We can build back better by understanding prevention, wearing your mask, washing your hands, social distancing, and understanding the impact of long COVID. Get the care you deserve. Take advantage of your privileges. Contact us, info@thegreenfoundation.net. info@thegreenfoundation.net.
In Big Tobacco's Fantasyland, children are the future. Here, tobacco companies are committed to higher education, offering scholarships to students who submit essays about the benefits of vaping. The tobacco industry even sponsors summer camps for kids. Don't worry, the tobacco-sponsored programs have been linked to leaving your kids more interested in smoking. In Big Tobacco's Fantasyland, the world's deadliest industry is your child's friend. See reality at undo.org.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth. Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
I could stare at you all day. Even in pitch blackness, you are a beautiful genius. I draw you with the soft fingers around my heart. We make funny faces with our bare feet. Laughter is the lotion we put on our bones after the shower. Our eyes make love like two birds twirling in a field of passion. Never met anyone like you in my life. I am both excited and terrified. Excited because we have been here before, perhaps in post-war Paris or the Harlem Renaissance. Two lovers swaying to jazz and French kissing history. while reading Zora and Langston to each other.
I could stare at you all day, even in pitch blackness. You're my beautiful genius.
KBLA Talk 1580. This is a taste. You can go get the album, Grocery Shopping with My Mother. It's based on the book of the same name by Kevin Powell. He is a public speaker, public intellectual, a poet, author, and activist, and he's on the phone with me this morning. What do you want to say about the album? I don't want to skip over that. What do you want to say about it? Where shall we get it? What shall we look for when we're listening to it? Mr. Powell, you there?
Hey, I'm here. I'm so sorry. I had it on mute. I'm so sorry.
No worries. I thought you were listening to yourself rapturously.
No. I was.
I wouldn't be mad at that, though.
No. I just. It's just weird hearing my music on radio. It's just like, wow, we did this. It's everywhere. It's every streaming platform. We put it out there ourselves, and I'm encouraging folks to check it out. If there's folks out there who are Grammy voters in LA or anywhere in the country, please consider voting for it, is what I humbly ask. And, thank you for playing that because, I just think, I grew up with love songs. I grew up listening to the Stylistics and the Dramatics and Ray Goodman and Brown and even the Bee Gees, Too Much Heaven. I just, and I also said I can't criticize my beloved hip hop and just the culture in general about the absence of love songs if I don't go make one or two. And we have a couple in there because I'm in love. I have an amazing life partner, amazing wife, and I'm just thrilled. She actually sings on that song. That's her doing part of the harmonies on that song.
Oh, nice.
She's a gifted artist herself. She's a gifted artist, So, yeah, I just want people to listen. I think it's a lot of stuff in there. There's a track on there called Tupac and Biggie about, unfortunately the internalized racism that a lot of us as Black males deal with. There's a piece on it that's a tribute to my mother, the title piece. It's a long piece about my mom and paying homage to her. There's a letter of forgiveness to my father that's on there. So there's a lot there, and I just want people to kind of sit with it. And I wanted to try to do something different with spoken word. It's definitely, I definitely pay homage to the classic poetry of the late 60s and early 70s. We have one track that's just African drums, African instruments, and I had to do that. That's actually a piece about Kobe Bryant, and so there's a lot going on in the album, and I just hope people give it a listen and share it if you dig it. That's all I ask,
Well, you said the album is released partly in the spirit of 50 years of hip-hop. You've written a little bit about Tupac in your own autobiography, and from what I understand, plan to do more in the future. What were your thoughts when you saw that they arrested someone, in the murder of Tupac? All these years later, and all these, I guess, videos and online conversations later, Dwayne Keefe Davis arrested for the murder of Tupac Shakur. How did you read that?
Well, for the listeners, I actually did 3 cover stories on Tupac for Vibe magazine when I was working there for Quincy Jones back in the day, and I was actually in Vegas when Pac died. I was there on behalf of Rolling Stone. That's the 4th cover story I did on Tupac, and I'm working on a book on Tupac. I've been working on it for a long time. Trauma, the same thing that Mo Preem Shakur, Tupac's stepbrother, said when the news broke, that this opens up trauma for a lot of us. It's almost 30 years, it's almost 3 decades, and you wonder how serious these folks are about actually solving these situations. You know what I mean? And it ain't just people like Tupac or Biggie, but it's Malcolm X, it's Dr. King. We can go on down the list of folks. Yeah. Mark Clark and Fred Hampton in Chicago. And so we just are saying those of us who really knew Pac and really, understood the situation in holistic terms, and I'm talking about those of us who are activists. We're just waiting and seeing. That's all I can really say. And I'm definitely my book will be out in about a year or so on Pac finally. And I'm saying a lot of things in the book about the whole situation. It's not about trying to solve a murder or any of that kind of stuff, but just kind of helping to contextualize, because it's much bigger than hip hop. It's much bigger than this one arrest, and people need to understand that.
Yeah, I mean, for people like me, I can't say I hung out with Tupac. He didn't propose to me while he was in prison or anything like that. But I knew.
All right, Jada.
But I knew him from, when he was a roadie with Digital. I'm from the Bay, right? I grew,
Yes,
like
you are.
we were
Yes.
around each other. He put me on to live and die in LA, and he told me he didn't tell me specifically, but he indicated that something like that was going to happen. So I knew him. I loved him.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, in a way, the arrest brings up more questions than answers. It's not a resolution for me at all.
No, I agree. And I mean, honestly, you are one of the few media folks that I've even talked with about this. I literally ignored my phone for 3 or 4 days. I got calls and text messages and from all over the world.
Wow.
Dominique DiPrima, like, Kevin, can you please, like BBC, MSNBC, CNN. I was like, no, because I mean, one, two, I also, when people need to understand, when I first started, I met Tupac 30 years ago, literally the summer of 1993. He had seen me on the first season of MTV's The Real World. I had seen him in Juice, and I knew his music, as you said, from Digital Underground and his first solo album. I didn't realize that we were mutual fans of each other. I just said to Vibe magazine when they asked me who would I want to write about, because of his background, because of his mother, honestly, Fanny Shakur, who she was, and that whole history of activism. I was like, this is someone that I think is interesting. He's like a merger of Public Enemy and NWA in his music. It's like he's representing both these entities, and it's in this one person because of who his life was. And so that's how it started for me. I didn't know it was going to turn into, there's no way we could have predicted. There's no way we could have predicted Pac would become a global icon,
Nope.
probably the most famous rapper in our history. There's no way we could have known any of that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's deep. Yeah.
It is deep, and I'm hoping we'll one day, just like I'm hoping one day we'll get real answers about Malcolm X. One day we'll get real answers about what actually happened, and all of the players, the hidden hands, the orchestrators of Tupac's murder. Honestly.
You know what's deep about what you just said, and I want to bring it back to Scorsese's film Killers of the Flower Moon. It feels like what ends up happening with America over and over again, we wait until people die or generations of people die, and then then the truth comes out. You know what I mean? It's tragic. Yeah. Even like with the Malcolm X stuff, the Netflix thing was cool, but I'm like, these folks now are in their 70s and 80s. You were talking about, and many of these people are now dead. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, when you think about Tupac, people are still only between their 40s and early 60s, when you think about the kind of the group of us who, so we're not old, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, it's just really going to be solved and dealt with while many of us are still alive. I don't know, but based on, past experiences, you have to wonder what's really happening here. But then to what you were saying earlier, when you were talking about, health issues, the Republican Party, I also believe that a lot of times distractions are created to get us chasing our tails while all this stuff is happening politically to get us off our mark, off our square. And so here we are following all the stuff happening with Jada and all the stuff in media, all the stuff with this arrest around, this person, we're all like trying to figure out what's going on. Meanwhile, Congress is shut down. Meanwhile, voting rights, abortion rights, affirmative action, all these different things, the blatant disrespect of immigrants, all this stuff is happening. The homelessness explosion everywhere. You mentioned black males earlier. What has struck me, Dominique DiPrima, as I've traveled from New York to California and places in between, I've never seen so many black folks and so many black males homeless in my life as I've seen in the last couple of years. While we're chasing, leads about who killed Tupac and, what's in Jada's book and all this other stuff, these are the things that I'm thinking about. What is happening with people in this country as people are continuing to suffer over and over again?
Yeah. And when you talk about the sheer number of unhoused black folks, and I know, we talk about that all the time on the show. I know we have a housing shortage, an affordability crisis, price gouging, all of these things, discrimination, racism, all these things play into it. The other thing folks don't want to talk about because they don't want to stereotype black people or homeless people is that I have never seen so many black people all the way out of our minds on these streets. Never.
I'm glad you said that. Mental health is real. I mean, sister, And my wife and I travel together a lot. And so we're looking at this, she's a native of California. I'm a native of the East Coast. And we're looking at this like, man, we have never seen so many Black folks having conversations with themselves on the streets of this country.
I mean, what is it, Kevin?
profound.
Is it the drugs? Is it the extreme poverty? Have we finally snapped? I know Miles is giving me the signal, so I guess you'll have to answer that when we come forward. What is it? Why have we gone over the edge? I mean, we've been subjected to everything from our enslavement to Jim Crow to everything in between, lynchings, and we never snapped. But I feel like right now we are snapping. Why? We're talking with Kevin Powell, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here with a quick recap from my time at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. There were speakers Ian Dunlap, Damon John, Lynn Richardson, MC Light, Don Kennedy, to name a few. Take a listen to what Justin Grant, Community Development Lead at Chase's Advancing Black Pathway, let's see what he had to say.
So I'm Justin Grant. I lead community development and national partnerships for JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Pathway strategy. And so we're focused on strengthening the economic foundation of Black communities, and we're making targeted investments in programs like the Advancing Black Wealth Tour to help us get our tools and resources out to the community to drive sustained impact over time.
So when it comes to Black and brown people, it sounds like Chase is making it their personal responsibility not only to facilitate these events, but to educate and provide resources. So, Mr. Grant, I have to ask, what does wealth building look like for the individual?
It's home ownership, it's having that freedom to be able to start your own business and create jobs in your community, and it's having that long-term plan towards retirement, having that vision for what you want your life to be, and you have the resources to actually live it.
I'm Maisha Cairo. Thanks for sticking around. That was my recap from Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. First stop was here in LA, and they're taking it national.
Do you have both Medi-Cal and Medicare?
If so, the new LA Care plan called Medicare Plus can help you get the most out of your health plan for $0.
LA Care provides personalized service to Angelinos like us.
Plus, it gives us access to doctors and specialists across Los Angeles County.
For zero cost, we get access to full benefits.
From vision coverage,
in-home support services,
to prescription drug coverage, and a quarterly over-the-counter allowance.
plus personal equipment.
Meal programs,
a gym membership,
and so much more.
For more than 25 years,
LA Care has provided Angelinos with access to quality health care at an affordable cost.
For our families,
our seniors,
our community,
it's a plus.
It's a plus
for all of us.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Be heard. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Author, poet, and activist Kevin Powell is our guest. And congratulations to you on the Kevin Powell collection now being part of Cornell University. That's awfully prestigious and a very big deal. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Circling back to that tough question about why, what is going on with Black Americans and our mental health right now?
You know what's wild about your question? A sister friend of mine, she's actually from the Bay as well, named Cassidy Ark, and she, you can actually look it up, Dominic, and your listener. She was actually attacked while grocery shopping at a Whole Foods a couple weeks ago in New York. Unfortunately, it was a young Black male in his 30s with mental health challenges who smashed her over the head with a bottle and another customer at the store. And you raise a great point. How do we survive the Middle Passage, enslavement, segregation, lynchings? I mean, all these different, the crack era, heroin, we can go down a list of things.
Right.
You know, I don't know if I have an answer for it, but I believe that part of it is that the economic system is such a chokehold. I mean, as you know, being middle class now is not what being middle class was back in the day, where you literally are living check to check. And if you're under middle class, lower middle class, or poor, working class, it's very easy to get caught out there. And I think that also this country does not deal with mental health at all. I go to therapy. I've been going to therapy for years as a Black person because I realized at a certain point I absolutely need to have some sort of emotional, mental support. I need to unpack things, traumas, as we like to say in these times, from my childhood, in addition to the traumas that I've picked up along the way in my adult years. But I also realized that's not a lot of us, and it's not like it's even encouraged, supported to talk about stuff. And I think, a lot of folks have just kind of given up. I think there's two forms of suicide. I had a friend a couple of years ago who committed suicide, a black male who was dynamic, 2 degrees, filmmaker. He was on his way. He just gave up. But I also think there's slow suicide where we just start slowly to fade out and just say, I can't deal with this. I can't deal with this. And we end up in Venice Beach or Santa Monica in L.A. We end up on the subway platforms of New York City and all these places in between. And then I think from there, it becomes very easy to lose all sense of reality. I'm saying this, Dominique DiPrima, as someone who has battled depression throughout my life. I have felt like I was slipping. It's very easy because it really, this whole notion of survival of the fittest that we were taught in the school system is bogus. We know that in this society. This extreme individualism. We need community and we need people. And yes, some of us, many of us, I would say all of us need help in some form, but we kind of tell folks, go for it. You got to do it. You got to just figure it out all by yourself. And I think some people just collapse under the weight of it all. And then it becomes very easy to just be out there. And it's tragic to me. It hurts my heart to even think about it. But literally, I've seen downtown LA. We live close to downtown Brooklyn. It is flooded. People are in the doorways. They're on crates. They're sleeping on milk crates. They're sleeping on cardboard. They're sleeping on concrete. People are just kind of everywhere. And the other part of it that's sick about our society, so many of us just walk by folks. And I'm not saying you got to give money to everybody, but many of us don't have money to give to everyone, but just at least acknowledge their humanity. In New York, you know how we are in New York. We just walk right by people like they're not even there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, sorry about your friend, taking his life. And I think that it was many years ago when I first came to LA, I interviewed some homeless teenagers on my show. And one young man said to me, when someone walks by me, and I ask them for money or I say something to them and they don't even acknowledge me, they won't look me in the eye, they don't even tell me no, it makes me want to meet them around the corner and hit them over the head. When he told me that, I got the message. Ever since then, I will acknowledge your humanity. You might not get nothing, but you are going to get a yes, a no, a hello, and I think that's the least we can offer to other human beings. Let's go to Fahima. She wants to talk to you. She's calling all the way from New York, Washington, D.C., actually. Go ahead, Fahima.
Actually, you were right, Dominique Kabaragani. Greetings, Kevin. This is Fahima from Frontline Artists. In the interest of time, I know we don't have much time. Can you talk a little bit about the effort to erase the contributions of Black people from the Caribbean and from Puerto Rico in the development of hip hop? They took music out of the school, instruments out of the schools, and that's one of the things, Black people's ability to make something out of nothing. Could you just talk a little bit about that? And just wanted to congratulate you on your nuptials, and I'm going to pick up grocery shopping with my mother sometime this week.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, even the way she framed it, because a lot of folks on the West Coast would say it's just the opposite. It's an effort to erase the contribution of Black Americans from the origins of hip hop, and now it's for everybody. But at the same time, and we even have a couple folks over here who are trying to say that it was strictly a Latin Caribbean thing, and Black Americans have nothing to do with it. So here we are, 50 years in, fighting over who invented this important American institution. So yeah, let's reflect on that a little.
Well, I want folks to check out the political piece I did. I talk about that at length there. But for me, as a lifelong hip-hop fan, African-Americans, West Indians, and Latinx folks in New York City created the culture together in an African-American context. When Kool Herc came from Jamaica in 1967, to New York City, to the Bronx, New York, as a teenager, he told me, because I did a long interview with him at the Schoenberg years back, where he talked about how it was him listening to things like James Brown records that inspired what he was doing, as a DJ. And so we can't get caught up in this divide and conquer stuff. And as a Californian, Dominique, there was a parallel energy happening in the 1970s and into the early 80s with African Americans in the Chicano community, the Mexican American community, and so, you could see it on Soul Train in the 70s. They're popping and locking on Soul Train in California in the 70s. And so, it was seeded in New York City, but I definitely think something was happening. Obviously, Uncle Jam's Army, other things that were happening in California. So, I was never one, even when I was younger coming up, I was never like, East Coast, West Coast, or down South music. No, I'm like, we all were contributing to this thing that became this culture. You're from the Bay Area, but the Bay Area has always been historically dynamic musically. There's so many different things that became a part of hip hop that comes out of that region, but it's definitely those three groups. And I think we do ourselves a disservice if we start to erase it, just like if we only focus on rappers, MCs, and don't talk about the DJs, the graffiti writers and the dancers as well. Those four elements are hip hop, and it is making something out of nothing. The sister said it is winning on our own terms. And, you know, I grew up in this, and I know I was at the clubs. It was Black American folks, West Indian folks, and Puerto Ricans at those clubs in New York City in the early 1980s. Those groups together were making this thing happen, so we can't say it was one or the other. But even Puerto Ricans you talk to, like Crazy Legs, my brother Crazy Legs will say, you know, this is an African culture. At the end of the day, you know, as your father said in Blues People and Black Music, two of his most famous books, it all goes back to Africa. It all goes back to the motherland. It's what we carried with us, and that's actually true as well.
Yeah, I mean, well said. Obviously, that's what you do. Where will we find that political piece you're referencing?
It's the website Politico. I'm sorry. If you go to the website Politico, yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm talking real fast.
Politico.com, right. Okay. All good. Good. No, I mean, I think, you know, and I also think it's disingenuous to think like we were all in our pods. It's true we didn't have the internet, but we had airplanes. Like the reason I got into hip hop is because I went back east, went to the New York Poets Cafe with my mom and dad, and they were breakdancing to James Brown, by the way, and they called it, you know, it burning or b-boying, whatever. So I mean, we were influenced by them, they were influenced by us, and we all, yeah. But is it fair to say it's Black American music, though?
Oh yeah. Without question. It's in the context of us in this country, without question, you know. And I just think that it's important for us as African Americans to not be so insecure that we erase folks who are West Indian or Latinx from the conversation. I think that's disingenuous, just like people trying to erase us who are African Americans from the conversation. It's an African American context, just like blues, spirituals, rock and roll, you know, except soul music, all African American context, jazz music, African American context. So certainly the context. But we know, like, we go and, you know, look at Dizzy Gillespie and other great jazz musicians. They were incorporating Latin rhythms into their jazz pieces. Yeah. And so, you know,
and those Latin rhythms in turn were influenced by Africa. So it does all go back to the motherland. But it's a great point because that's, you know, would DJ Kool Herc have done what he did had he stayed, you know, been in Jamaica and never came to New York into somebody's, you know, basement or whatever, or somebody's park? And I would argue no.
I would agree with you. This is where it was incubated. That's important to say. This, and the context of it, think about it, the same poor people Dr. King told us not to abandon at the end of his life, that famous Vietnam War speech and the Poor People's Campaign he was trying to organize, are the same working class people who created hip-hop. It was created by working class people. And so there's a direct connection. And, you know, I don't think it's even a coincidence that as hip-hop was being incubated, you had the Black Panthers, African-American group, Black group, and the Young Lords, Latinx group, that were there in the Bronx, New York, in Harlem, uptown New York City, just like hip-hop was being created by these Black and brown people in the same exact region.
Well, it's been a great conversation, Kevin Powell. I'm glad we finally made it happen, and congratulations to you on all your successes.
Thank you. I'll see you in person next time. Looking forward to it. Thank you for having me. And thank you for who you are and all you do for us. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. You know who's next? It's Tavis Smiley. History is now, and we are making it together. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. President Biden is sending condolences to the family of a young Chicago, Illinois boy killed in what's being called a hate crime. The 6-year-old, what's gathered suggests the family was targeted